Phones are working great. So welcome to this edition of the Native News Update on this Wednesday, October 7th. I'm your host for today's program, Paul Demain. Many of the stories right here can also be found at our website at IndianCountryNews.com. Here are the news stories for the day from the Associated Press and other Native news sources. A Rapid City woman pled not guilty to murder charges filed in a 1975 shooting death on the Pine Ridge Reservation. Thelma Rios was arraigned October 6th on one count of felony murder in relation to kidnapping and one count of premeditated murder in the death of Anime Pictou Aquash. The 64-year-old Rios and John Graham of Canada are accused in state court of taking part in the kidnapping and killing of Aquash. Prosecutors say Aquash was killed because the leadership of AIM became convinced she was a government informant against the American Indian movement. A federal criminal complaint against the 54-year-old Graham is on hold pending a request for an appeals court rehearing on jurisdictional issues in the case because Graham claims he's not an American Indian while in the United States. A judge has dismissed a federal lawsuit filed by 4 tribes from South Dakota and Nebraska in an attempt to stop construction of the Trans-Canada Keystone Pipeline. It will move crude oil from Alberta, Canada to refineries in Kansas, Oklahoma, and Illinois. The $5.2 billion project over more than 2,100 miles will also go through North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska, and Missouri. The Sisseton, Wahpeton, Oyate, Rosebud Sioux, Santee Sioux, and Yankton Sioux argued that treaties and federal laws and regulations were broken during the environmental assessment of the route and granting of the permit. But a judge dismissed the complaint, saying the tribes didn't show a treaty basis or that the government failed in its trust duties. The Bureau of Indian Affairs has signed an agreement with the Shoshone-Bannock tribes to help pay for operations of the tribe's $19.7 million Justice Center. The contract signed last week commits the BIA to provide reoccurring funding for operations and maintenance at the new facility. The exact amount of money has not yet been determined. Construction of the Justice Center started in June. It is expected to be completed in December and to open in February. The Justice Center will consist of 3 courtrooms and separate detention areas that will be able to hold up to 80 adults and 20 juveniles. To pay for the center, the tribes last year obtained a $15.9 million loan from the Native American Bank to go with the $4 million the tribe has set aside as seed money over a decade ago. Governor David Paterson of New York has backed the Shinnecock Nation's bid to be federally recognized, a necessary step if the tribe is to operate a casino in the Hamptons playground of the rich and famous. The federal government is expected to make a preliminary ruling by December 15th on whether to officially recognize the Seaside tribe on Long Island. Some elected officials are concerned about how a casino would affect traffic and the environment, while others are open to studying the idea. In its application for federal recognition, the tribe said it has been governing itself more than a century before the state and federal governments were created. To say federal recognition of the Shinnecock is long overdue would be an understatement, Paterson wrote in a September 22nd letter to Interior Secretary Ken Salazar. Paterson's staff confirmed that letter was sent. About 500 Shinnecock tribal members now live in modest homes on a 1,200-acre reservation in Southampton, New York. Nearby, some of the richest people in the world, including Wall Street power brokers and Hollywood celebrities, have sprawling estates worth tens of millions of dollars. When wildlife investigators came to Marshall, Alaska in July, Jason Isaac didn't deny fishing illegally to protest subsistence fishing restrictions on the Yukon River. The only police officer in the small native village was also the only protester who admitted to fishing illegally. So last week, Isaac was ticketed. Jim Helgrim, the top national refuge officer in Alaska, flew to the village of 400 and handed Isaac a $275 ticket at the airstrip. But Isaac says he doesn't regret what he did, protesting state and federal fishery managers that had reduced subsistence fishing. He also didn't think twice about telling the truth to investigators while the other protesters stayed silent. He even told investigators they should ticket his oldest son, 10-year-old Dominic, for helping collect the fish the group shared with others. Isaac said the investigators laughed that comment off. The reason behind the illegal fishery was an attempt to protest state and federal fishery managers who had sharply reduced subsistence fishing in the rural village. On June 26, more than a dozen men traveled 10 miles upriver to fish illegally in the Yukon Delta National Wildlife Refuge. They were angry, claiming managers were more concerned with the treaty with Canada than protecting rural Alaskans' rights to food and resources. The Mohegans governing body on October 5th elevated its vice chairwoman to the Connecticut tribe's top post, making her the first female leader in tribal history. Lynn Malherbe was selected chairwoman by her peers on the 9-member tribal council about a month after tribal members re-elected her to the council. She replaces Bruce Two Dogs Bosum, who will serve now as the vice chairman. Malherbe, 56, a former critical care nurse, said although she is the tribe's first female leader, women have always played key roles in Mohegan history. Tribal members have always consulted and relied upon Mohegan women for guidance regardless of whether they had formal leadership roles, she said. Malherbe, vice chairman for the past 4 years, takes on her new role during a challenging time for the Mohegan. The owners of the Mohegan Sun Casino, one of the country's largest tribal casinos. With the national economic downturn, gambling revenues have fallen, prompting the tribe last year to halt plans to continue a major expansion project. And that is the latest roundup of news from Indian Country on this edition of the Native News Update. We certainly want to thank you for helping us with this broadcast by joining in and watching it. Miigwech.